zip up your members-only jacket, crack open a tab, and pause your Walkman as we bring you to the 1980s.
Welcome to 80s Show Podcast, where we talk about all things 1980s. From movies to TV shows, music and stars, fads and fashions, we'll talk about anything and everything to do with the 1980s.
The 1980s, the best decade in decades.
Well, welcome to the 80s Show Podcast once again. We are your hosts alongside Damien Raffelli. My name is Bill Lassiter. And we've got a pretty great show for you today, right, Damien?
We have a great show. I'm really looking forward to this. It's going to be great.
All right. You heard it straight from Damien. It's going to be great. Hey, don't forget to hit us up on Twitter and Facebook. I know I keep saying Twitter, Damien. Every episode I say Twitter, but it's X, right?
We're going to call it Twitter.
Okay. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those things. And of course, if you want to send us an email, you can email us at 80showpodcast@gmail.com. Damien, what do we got going on today?
Well, for today's episode, which is called Cocaine Drives the 80s.
Oh, boy.
We're going to be talking about the DeLorean Motor Corporation.
All right. And then after that, we're going to be talking about our favorite action movies from the 1980s. And what we're going to wrap up with, Damien?
Well, continuing with the theme of drugs and the 80s and sweet vibes, Miami Vice.
All right. Great TV show. Looking forward to talking about that today. And of course, as we always open up 80 Show Podcast, we do have some 80s in the news this week. Do you want to start off, Damien, talking about what you told me earlier?
Yes, I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts, other than 80 Show Podcast.
Oh, yeah, it's the number one.
Last Podcast on the Left, where they talk about true crime, paranormal, aliens, a lot of fun stuff.
Oh, great.
And they had a episode that was just about alien movies that they liked, all from different decades, all the way from, Contact to one of the more recent ones, Paul, things like that. But one of the things they mentioned, I actually forgot Cocoon was an alien movie.
Oh, absolutely. Cocoon was a great alien movie back in 1985, I believe, is when Cocoon came out.
It sounds right. And we talked about this in one of our episodes in season 1. We were talking about where in the world is Steve Guttenberg.
Absolutely, the Goot.
He was one of the stars of that. Well, apparently, Cocoon, I guess it's not streaming anywhere. It's really hard to find. And apparently, they're selling for a lot of the VHS tapes and maybe DVDs are selling for a lot of money on eBay.
Yeah, I heard that too, and you can't find it streaming anywhere, and nobody really knows why. It's kind of disappearing, and it was Ron Howard's really first directorial debut, and it was a big success critically and everything, but it is very hard to find now.
Well, I think it's because the gray aliens have it on lockdown. I think Ron Howard was giving us the truth. It was disclosure.
There we go. I figured it'd go that way. And what else was in the alien news that you heard?
Well, on the last podcast on the left, they were also talking about E.T. And one thing I didn't know is during the re-release, I think it was in 2020 or something like that, they actually edited out the guns. Did you know about this, Bill?
Yeah, so I saw a thing about this. So not only did they edit out the guns, so there's the iconic scene of Elliot and E.T. riding jumping over the cop cars and flying away, basically. And the cops had their guns drawn in that scene. They're going to shoot an 8-year-old. I don't know what was going to happen with that, but and they superimposed walkie-talkies in their hands instead of guns.
It's kind of lame, I think.
I think so too.
I think we've officially jumped the shark.
There we go. And so, Damien, I know you also kind of took a little deep dive on a very little known movie and TV show from the 80s. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so last week I was dog sitting for some friends, and I was a little bored and wanted to watch something, and I stumbled across Blue Thunder from the 1980s. Well, there was a movie and a TV show. I don't know if you remember both of those.
I don't at all, but you did tell me a little bit about it, and I did some research about it. So tell us just a synopsis of the TV show and the movie.
Well, the movie was a little bit more dramatic. It was a very serious movie. I believe it came out in 1983.
Okay.
And it was about helicopter pilots for the LAPD.
All right.
And it was really about the surveillance state and the warnings of how we were being threatened to militarize our police, which of course has come true.
What? Really? I haven't noticed. Anyway, go ahead.
And then the military brought in this helicopter. It kind of looked like an Apache. They mocked up a commercial helicopter, looked like an Apache Army helicopter, which came out right around that time. And they brought it out to actually defend the 1984 Olympics against terrorism.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad they did they must have done their job, because I went to a few of the games, the 84 Olympics, and I felt safe.
Yeah, I mean, they might have blown up a few buildings and testing in downtown LA like they did in the movie.
Okay, all right.
But it was a fun watch. It was really good. It was well made. I would say the cinematography was great.
Okay.
The helicopter scenes were really cool. The one thing I appreciated about it was practical effects. It wasn't a lot of special effects. They used a few models here and there you could see, but you could definitely tell they filmed a lot of helicopter scenes. The real helicopters, not just a small model or a computer.
Gotcha. So live action helicopter actually doing some damage in downtown LA.
Exactly.
So then they rebooted it as a TV show, which of course it did, because it was the 80s. Something was minutely successful, so let's just capitalize on that, right?
Yeah, and Blue Thunder did really well at the box office. So the next year, 1984, they came out with a TV show, and they said, "Hey, how can we take a great movie and screw it up?"
As Hollywood does sometimes.
Turn an action dramedy or drama movie into a comedy action movie.
Okay.
And I was joking with you about who started in this, Bill, man. It was, who did I tell you started this?
So this is great. So Damien told me about this. I had to look it up, and starring a very young looking Dana Carvey. I mean, he looks like he's 15 in the picture from the TV show.
Yeah, he really does. Maybe even younger.
Yeah. So Dana Carvey, and then two iconic 80s figures, I guess. Bubba Smith and Dick Butkus, of all people, are in this TV show. I can't believe it got canceled, Damien.
I can't believe it either. Barely made it one season somehow. It couldn't hold up against Airwolf, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
But the funny thing was, so Bubba Smith from Police Academy fame.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Dick Butkus, the Bears. A famous Chicago Bears football player. And he did a lot of cameos.
And a great name, by the way.
Yeah. Butkus.
I was thinking the first name, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny for both, the first and last name.
It's all good. It's all good.
Lots of jokes there. But they were teamed up as part of the police force on the ground, and they rode in this police van. And they, instead of Blue Thunder, because they were on the ground, they called themselves Rolling Thunder.
Rolling Thunder on the ground. There you go.
And Dana Carvey was up in the helicopter as the co-pilot. The main actor I'd never heard of, never seen him in anything else.
Okay.
And it was kind of funny watching Dana Carvey try out some of his voices. And he wasn't quite as good at the impersonations as he later became.
Yeah.
It was fun to see him in that kind of role.
It's so funny because I had no idea that Dana Carvey was like in a serious. This was supposed to be a drama, right? It was not a comedy.
No, it was a comedy, actually comedy.
Okay.
Yeah, they were. I think they were trying to go more like an A-Team style.
Okay, gotcha.
I do remember watching this when I was really young. A few episodes of it.
Okay.
I never really got into it. I was more into Airwolf.
Yeah. So. Well, if you have seen Blue Thunder, which I never have, and I had to look it up, and I mean, it's on the internet, so it must be true. So it must have happened. But you guys should check it out for sure. And then, of course, Damien, because we all make mistakes, we do have some errors and omissions. Damien, you want to correct the record of for the listeners right now?
Yeah, It's shocking that we were wrong on a few things. It's a once in a lifetime.
Ask my wife; she knows that I'm wrong a lot. So go ahead.
All right. So in fact, the Christopher Columbus who wrote the script for Gremlins was not the same Christopher Columbus who discovered America.
Oh, that's okay. I'm glad we cleared that up. I thought it was the same guy. So, and Damien, I did find something that I want to correct you on. Apparently Bill and Ted did get it right. The earth is indeed round.
YouTube would disagree.
Oh, again, if it's on the internet, it must be true. All right. So there's our errors and omissions from the last few episodes. And, of course, hey, big news here on the 80 Show podcast once again, where we have a new sponsor to the 80 Show podcast. Damien?
Bugle Boy.
Excuse me. Are those Bugle Boy jeans that you're wearing?
Well, yes. They are Bugle Boy jeans.
Thank you.
All right, so the first segment here on the 80 Show podcast, we're going to talk about the DeLorean Motor Corporation. Damien, so Damien has done a deep dive on DeLorean and John DeLorean and all of his life and his story and stuff like that. I'm telling you, people, 13 pages of research this guy has written, right, Damien?
Yeah, so I even read a book for this.
Yeah, you even read a book. So we want to talk about that because it is part of the 1980s story. It really is the quintessential 1980s, adventure story. And if you saw it like on the big screen or something like that, a movie about it, you would think it was fiction, but it actually did happen. And of course it happened in the 1980s. So first of all, DeLorean Motor Corporation was founded by John Z. DeLorean back in 1975, and he was a former GM executive. He worked on the Pontiac GTO and other cars, and he wanted to build a futuristic yet ethical and safe sports car that kind of challenged the auto industry's status quo. And he raised a bunch of money, right, Damien?
Yeah, he raised well over $100 million in the early 80s, so which would be worth many more hundreds of millions of dollars today.
Yeah. So he actually had some celebrity backing with Johnny Carson even and Sammy Davis Jr., and he had some government support to build what he called the DMC-12, which I think is funny that the first car was going to be number 12.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that came from because in the second model was going to be the DMC-24.
Right, yeah, you got to double it. Basically, he was looking for an economical sports car, basically and that was going to be different than everything else that you see out there.
Yeah, and if you look back at the time, then it was during the oil crisis, and in cars back when he first envisioned the DeLorean in the 70s, cars were not fuel efficient, as we know from our 70s cars.
Exactly.
And there was all of a sudden a need to be fuel efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. And every time I smell diesel burning or whatever, I think of the 1980s. I think of growing up in the 1980s. So anyway, the DMC-12 launched in 1981. A couple of features of the car was, it had the stainless steel body, which you didn't see in any other car until recently with the Cybertruck, right?
Right.
It had the gullwing doors, which I always thought were so freaking cool, right? Those doors were so cool.
Yeah, if they'd actually worked on the DeLorean, they would have been really sweet.
Okay. And they had a V6 engine, and they tried to price it so I was reading this statement. I was like, $25,000. That's not too bad. Well, let's think about it now in today's dollars. It's like $80,000, right?
But I will say, because of the hype early on and their limited supply, dealers were marking them up by $5,000 to $10,000, and people were paying for it. There was waiting lists. People were just paying cash, non-refundable deposits. So early on, before the cars were delivered, there was a huge hype about it. And this is even before Back to the Future came out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the car found immortality in 1985 with, Doc Brown building his time machine out of a DeLorean. And it's funny because in my memory, I thought the DeLorean came out in 85 or around that time, but really it was a few years old by the time it came out, right?
Well, in fact, DeLorean Motor Corporation was already bankrupt and out of business by 85.
Which as a child, I didn't know that. But anyway, so they released about 9,000 units. I was just telling Damien today that I saw one just the other day, just out there. And I know there's like a whole DeLorean group of people who own them and go to different car shows and things like that.
There's actually DeLorean conventions around the country. There's a museum in Houston just for DeLoreans.
Right, yeah.
And there's people who've been trying to reboot and make new DeLoreans. I think probably by hand. I'm not sure how far that's gotten off the ground. Hopefully it's a little bit they perform better. You mentioned it had a V6. Do you know how many horsepower that V6 produced?
No.
Only 130 horsepower. The car was really heavy.
Yeah.
And and it went. How fast it went from 0 to 60?
It's got to be like 3 seconds, right?
9 seconds.
Okay, all right. So
how
not
Marty
great.
McFly got to the future is impressive.
That's very true, very true. No wonder they had to start so far, down the street for that iconic run. And so, like I said, the DeLorean became immortal from Back to the Future. Now, Damien, did the standard car come with the flux capacitor in it, or?
From my research, no, that was not a standard option.
Okay, all right. Well, so, this episode is called How Cocaine Fueled the 80s. And Damien, you've got some information here about how cocaine fueled the DeLorean, right?
Yeah, well, it's the standard business model when you're having a startup. You sell cocaine, you traffic cocaine to fund your company.
Yeah, you have to do it. Yeah, you have to do it. Okay. Tell us more about that, Damien.
Well, I will say John Z. DeLorean, he did go the traditional route of raising money. Well, I wouldn't say traditional, but for most car companies, he was very creative.
Okay.
He had big ideas. He was an entrepreneur in a lot of senses. He went out and raised a lot of money, like you said, from, there was a few celebrities who put in a little bit of money. I think Johnny Carson put in like $500,000 and, something similar for Sammy Davis Jr. But again, for especially back in the 80s, to create a whole brand new factory and get a car from a prototype all the way to street ready, it took a lot of time and a lot of capital investment.
Yeah.
And so DeLorean looked all over here. He talked to Saudi Arabian prince. He talked to different banks. He went all over to different countries. A lot of people were courting him to put the factory there to create jobs. Even Detroit, of course, because he came from General Motors.
Right.
He eventually ended up with the British government offered to fund the company, and they invested $100 million in late 1979, early 1980.
Right. Go Brits! All right, and so they, of course, they built it right there in London, right?
Yeah, no, that would make more sense.
Oh, okay.
No, but they made the wise choice of putting it in Northern Ireland.
Oh, wait, so Northern Ireland in the late 70s, early 80s. So there's no skirmishes or anything going on there.
Totally stable, politically, nothing going on. Like U2 didn't write any songs about that.
No. There was no Sunday Bloody Sunday. No.
So, of course, if anybody who knows a little bit about history, the IRA was fighting for independence from Britain. There's obviously deep cultural clashes.
Sure.
Also between the Protestants and Catholics is very divided. In fact, in Belfast, Northern Ireland, where they ended up putting the factory, it was segregated. Catholics lived on one side and the Protestants lived on the other side.
As the way it should be.
Exactly. Hey, I am Irish and born Catholic, raised Protestant. Whole another story there. Explains a lot.
Yeah, you can talk to your therapist about that. Yes. Okay, go ahead,
Damien. So they decided to put the factory in Belfast. And at the time, because of the unrest in Northern Ireland, the unemployment rate was I read a couple different articles, but in books and watched some documentaries, but there was anywhere from 33% to 50% unemployment rate in that area.
So people are looking for a job for sure.
Yeah. And so, it made sense. The British government wanted to provide jobs, stabilize things, also get, especially men off the streets who might have been causing some problems.
What? Okay.
And the factory that they ended up building there, I think the building might have already been there, but they retrofitted it to make it a modern automobile factory.
Gotcha.
It was in Belfast, split right in the middle between where the Catholics lived and the Protestants lived.
Okay. So kind of like we're bringing people together. We're making peace, right?
Yeah, in fact, they had separate entrances. This is serious. At the factory, which employed about 2,500 people, one entrance for the Catholics, one entrance for the Protestants.
Well, there you go. All right, so Damien, let's get to the cocaine part. I mean, that's your favorite part of the. Oh no,
no, that is my favorite. That's the only reason we're talking about this.
All right,
otherwise it's just a defunct car company at that point.
Boring. All right, so tell us about the cocaine. That was so prevalent in the 80s and how it helped out DeLorean.
So the DeLorean Motor Corporation, for many reasons, partly because of allegations. I'm not really sure if they're allegations at this point. I think they've been proven that DeLorean siphoned off millions and at least $18 million from the investment of the British government and other investors, probably much more. They burned through that $100 million pretty quickly. And DeLorean was running all over the place trying to raise money without giving up, equity and giving up his shares and control of the company. And he did actually find some money from an investment banker. There was have to give up quite a bit. He didn't. I don't think he wanted to sell, his multi-million-dollar estate in New Jersey, his multi-million-dollar penthouse on Fifth Avenue, his huge home in L.A., and all of his, assets.
Sure.
So, what do you do, Bill, when you can't raise money, especially in the 80s?
I guess you try to traffic some cocaine.
Yeah, you ring up Pablo Escobar.
There you go. It's on your speed dial right there. Okay, all right. Oh, it would have been a Rolodex on a speed dial.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's Rolodex. Okay, go ahead, Damien.
So I don't think he literally called Pablo Escobar, although he might have. Just knowing his jet set lifestyle. I mean, this was the excess rich lifestyles. He was living the right lifestyles of the rich and famous.
Absolutely, yeah.
I do think he went to Tom Vu's one of his seminars.
I mean, gosh, you have to, because that's the only way you're going to make money in the 80s, if you go to one of his seminars, right?
Yeah. So John DeLorean definitely wasn't a loser. So he had a connection through somebody who used to live in his neighborhood, and he was connected. He had a bunch of connections with people that were into this. So, later when he claims entrapment, it's hard to really say that. And there's also videos of him actually making these deals. So he basically gets connected. He has to invest, I think, $2 million to make like $40 million, right?
Oh, wow.
So that's always like a great deal, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
It's always
sounds
legit.
Good.
So eventually, he gets to the point where they're actually going to close this deal. He flies out from I think at the time from either from Ireland or New York all the way to L.A.
Okay.
And at the time, he actually had papers sitting on his desk for a loan that would have been a bridge loan to cover what he needed to get the rest of the DeLoreans out of the factory and deliver the ones that he was.
So he didn't even need to do this deal.
No, he would have had to given up, some equity and some control of the company, but the money was there, and not to mention all the money he siphoned off would have more than covered what he needed.
Well, yeah, drug trafficking is probably easier, I guess.
Yeah. So, he probably pulled up in his prototype DeLorean, used a crowbar to get out of that gullwing door.
There you go. Yeah.
And he ends up meeting with these, what he believes at the time are drug traffickers. And there's a great, Bill and I both watched this documentary. It was one of our source materials. It's called Myth and Mogul John DeLorean, and it's on Netflix right now. And they actually showed the surveillance video in this hotel, the L.A. Sheraton, right by the L.A. hotel, LAX airport.
LAX, yeah.
And you can see John DeLorean sitting down. They pop open a suitcase full of cocaine. The rest of the cocaine is, of course, ironically in a Chevy, which he used to be the head of Chevy.
Right, yeah.
Which I think the agents might have done that as a joke. I'm not sure.
Oh, you think so?
As a little bit of FU to DeLorean.
Yeah.
But this was a at the time, I think just this delivery would have been worth $25 million.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And it pops it open. DeLorean sitting down. He grabs a glass of what looks like champagne. And he starts toasting everybody in the room.
Here's my new friends.
That's right. Let's make some money together. And then the FBI agent Jerry West.
What Jerry? Right. He was
he must have taken
GM of the Lakers, and he was a FBI agent.
Yeah,
Crazy.
He must have during the summers. I guess he just was working as an FBI agent.
Oh,
comes in and says, "John DeLorean, you're under arrest." And there was literally a suitcase full of cocaine right in front of him. I mean, case closed.
And of course, he was eventually tried and convicted, right, Damien?
No, he was acquitted.
Wait, what? How can that be? Oh, that's probably it was the 80s, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they had him dead to rights. I mean, they really did. But he was a master publicist. He was a master of manipulating people. And, he just claimed right out of the game. Sure, of course, he has tons of money. He got really good lawyers. That's
of course, yeah.
And he just claimed that he was, was entrapment right away.
It's interesting to me that, this is a pretty big scandal, obviously. And even though he was acquitted, that Robert Zemeckis would use the DeLorean as their iconic, time machine, basically. But it does look it may not perform very well, Damien, but it looked pretty cool, right?
It did. And from what I understand, the reason you use stainless steel is because it's very sterile, and you could do lines of blow right off the hood of the of the DeLorean.
Is that why Doc Brown's hair was standing up?
Exactly.
In Back to the Future.
In fact, Bill and I were joking earlier about if we did a remake of Back to the Future instead of the Libyans, right? Who would we have?
It would be the drug traffickers from Colombia. It'd be Pablo and his buddies.
Yeah, instead of plutonium powering the DeLorean, it would have been cocaine.
Straight cocaine.
And that thing would have gone faster than 88 miles an hour. I guarantee you that.
For sure. All right, so Damien, after the fall of DeLorean or John Z. DeLorean. It's funny because everywhere I read on the internet, it referred to him as John Z. DeLorean, which I don't know. Anyway, kind of like when serial killers are known by their first, their middle, and their last name. So anyway, so what became of John DeLorean and just the brand DeLorean?
Well, unfortunately, for us fans of the car, the DeLorean, it was pretty much the end of that. The Motor Corporation. It went out of business. It went bankrupt. Even though there's been some people tried to reinvigorate. I think somebody bought the brand name, but as a car company, it was pretty much dead. The last that I saw of John DeLorean was at a DeLorean car convention in I think it was in 2000, which would have made him about 75 years old.
All right.
He still looked good. Amazingly, it looked like he had a little more plastic surgery. In fact, one of the documentaries we saw, it actually showed his chin before he had plastic surgery and then after. So I think we hit midlife crisis. He got a new chin just to make him look a little bit more.
So good.
Yeah, give him more character.
So good. Yeah.
But anyway, he was pitching a new car company, believe it or not.
At the DeLorean convention.
Yeah, totally practical too. He was going to make a car, selling for a measly $20,000, which even in the, 2000, pretty affordable.
Yeah.
And, this car would have gone head to head, according to him, with all the supercars: McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes supercar, and Porsche supercar.
I would have invested, Damien.
And those cars are like
Johnny Carson.
Those cars are like $1 million. It gets his $20,000 car.
Yeah, perfect. So of course he is no longer with us. Died in 2005 at the ripe old age of 80. So from what I understand, Damien, the DeLorean Motor Company, they were trying to do like an EV reboot in 2022. Didn't get much traction, so we'll see. Maybe we'll see a gullwing stainless steel car in the near future.
I would even love to see a more modern take on the DeLorean, just update the style a little bit, even though I love the classic, the shape of it. It would just be interesting to see. Hopefully they learn their lessons from the original go-around. I mean, there was a lot of quality control problems. That was part of the reason that the company failed. It wasn't just because they ran out of money. In fact, there were so many quality control problems when automobile reporters were coming into Belfast to test drive the first cars off the line. One of them got locked in the car. The gullwing door wouldn't open. So I joke about that. There was all kinds of problems.
Well, maybe he couldn't get out of the car, but maybe there was just a line of cocaine waiting for him to, occupy him for a little bit, right?
Yeah. I do want to read just this. There's an opening paragraph. This is from Car and Driver. Is there if I read this?
This is great. This is great to end this segment of the episode. Go for it.
So this really encapsulates the 1980s. This is from 1981 Car and Driver. This is the opening paragraph. We're slicing through the heavens at Mach 2, steeped to the gills in Dom Perignon and Beluga caviar. When the irony of it all slaps me sober, we survived the week of overindulgence, but all sight of our mission, tracking jet-setter John Z. DeLorean as he launches his dream in Northern Ireland, was lost somewhere between the London Ritz and Annabelle's discotheque.
Oh, yeah.
A courtage of distinguished American motor journalists has been diddled again. Every one of us is rushing back to the typewriter with more questions than answers.
That is just perfect. That encapsulates it all. I like the rushing back to a typewriter. And that's the time. So,
and that was a nice way of saying this car is crap.
Yeah, basically.
It looked beautiful, though. I will say it looked gorgeous.
0 to 60 9 seconds. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
And can you imagine if the car company was successful and they were able to figure this out? And then in 1985, when Back to the Future came out,
they
can you imagine how
they would have made a ton for sure.
This car would have just been exploded.
Yeah, so if you have any DeLorean stories, we would love to hear from you. So feel free to email us at 80showpodcast@gmail.com, and we would love to read your comments on a future episode.
All right, Bill. Now it's time for us to talk about some of our favorite action movies from the 80s.
Yes, can't wait for this. We both took different movies for this. We're just going to kind of talk about them. It's not really an 80s show movie battle because we both really respect both these movies. We just want to talk a little bit about them, right?
Yeah, and you know what? There's so many great action movies in the 80s. It's really hard to choose. So, I think we both decided to stick more with the theme of the episode for these. So these are not like in order. Like we're not saying this is our most favorite action movies.
Exactly.
I mean,
if you are a fan of the 80 Show podcast, you know what our favorite 80s action movie is. Red Dawn. Cue the Wolverines clip.
Wolverines! My movie that I chose, again, sticking with the theme of cocaine driving the 80s, I'm going to go with the classic flick, Scarface, starring the legend Al Pacino is Tony Montana.
There's cocaine in that movie?
There's just a few mounds of cocaine in that movie.
Okay, all right. And of course, Damien, I'm going to talk about, and really it was not cocaine for this movie. It was heroin, but Lethal Weapon.
Another classic movie.
Yeah.
I love the entire franchise, Lethal Weapon franchise.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about Scarface, Damien.
Scarface came out in 1983. It did really well at the box office.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe it was number 16, and I think it just beat out Blue Thunder, believe it or not.
All right, there's a callback right there. All right.
And, of course, it starred Al Pacino and Michelle Pfeiffer, and she was not known at this time. This was her first big break.
Okay, yeah. She was, definitely an 80s iconic, actress and dare I say, sex symbol.
Yeah, she became one after this. And, of course, Frank Loggia was in it as well, another classic actor. It was directed by Brian De Palma,
right,
and written by Oliver Stone.
Yeah, so Oliver Stone, of course, he wrote very many great movies in the 80s and beyond. And he was, you told me that he was stone cold sober while writing this movie, right, Damien?
Yeah, he was. So, according to what I read, he was when he wrote the screenplay because he actually wanted to kick the habit of cocaine.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah.
So I guess he just did a little method acting of his own, and somehow writing Scarface helped him kick his blow addiction. He moved to Paris, which I'm not sure how that's getting away from cocaine. I'm betting Paris is a pretty good nightlife.
It's further away from Colombia, but go ahead.
Yeah, but he is quoted as saying, "I wrote the script totally cold sober."
That's unfortunate.
It really is. It really is.
All right, so tell us a little bit more about the movie, Damien.
Well, before we get in the movie, just, as it came out in 1983, you want to take a guess at some of the other top movies of 1983? How about the top 3 movies of 1983?
Ooh, top 3 of 83. So I know one of them has got to be Return of the Jedi.
Absolutely. That is number 1, of course.
Yeah. I just, Star Wars nerd, so I knew that had to be up there. So 83.
I'm shocked at number 2. And the third movie, I will tell you, it was a movie Brian De Palma was going to direct, and then he left that to direct Scarface.
Oh, wow. So it was another action movie or no? No,
it wasn't.
You're shaking your head. All right, Damien.
I don't think you're going to get these. I was really surprised at number 2.
Yeah, go for it.
Number 2 was Tootsie.
Oh, you know what? That kind of makes sense. I mean, it was nominated for Academy Award and Dustin Hoffman. And...
I just didn't realize it did that well at the box office. I knew it was high up there, but I didn't know it came right under like Return of the Jedi.
I mean, cross-dressing back in the 83 was a little bit risque, but all right, so what was number 3?
Flashdance.
Oh, Flashdance, Jennifer Beals. Okay, all right.
That's definitely a classic.
Yeah, it is a classic 80s movie. Yeah. So, all right, so back to Scarface. Tell us a little bit more about it.
All right, so just sticking with the theme again of cocaine. Rumor has it that the producers wanted the actors, or they actually did, they had the actors snort powdered milk on set. And so those mounds of cocaine were allegedly just powdered milk. But,
okay, so I like the way you said allegedly. So,
but what I heard is Pacino's lactose intolerant. So rather than shitting his brains out on set, Pacino, being the method actor that he is, he snorted the real yayo.
All right, good for Pacino. Yeah, absolutely. All right. A method actor.
Come on, you've seen Scarface probably a million times, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you think he was snorting freeze-dried mother's milk or God's miracle cocaine?
The way he acted, I feel like it's got to be cocaine, but who knows? Who knows? Oh, we have to say allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah.
Yeah.
And another interesting fact of this movie is because of the violence and language, the movie was originally received an X rating, not an R rating.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
And it was in large part due to the clown getting shot. Because he got shot too many times. I'm not sure if anything to do with the chainsaw scene or, the millions of other just brutal violent scenes.
Hey, you shoot a clown, it's X-rated. Yeah, absolutely.
But how can you shoot a movie about cocaine in Miami in the 80s without being violent? I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary Cocaine Cowboys.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But it was extremely violent. So I think this movie was fairly... It had more accuracy, right? It's more of a true like gangster style movie.
Sure.
In fact, it was a remake of a movie from I think it was 1932.
Oh wow!
It was a movie about during the Prohibition, and I think it was about Al Pacino and Pacino or Al Pacino, Al Capone. Al Capone.
That's crazy.
And Al Pacino was he really wanted to remake this, so he was part of getting this done.
Yeah, and I do. It's funny because I feel like Scarface in the 80s, it was a big hit, but really it was more like it came to be more iconic in the 90s, and rappers started wearing the Scarface t-shirts, and I remember watching it a few times in the 90s on VHS. It became more, it just kind of grew over time of iconic status, I guess.
Yeah, and there's lots of great lines in that. I mean, one of the most classic ones that everybody says, "Say hello to my little friend."
Yeah, and so it's funny because like Pacino's accent in that movie is like, I know what he's going for, but there is that New York vibe with him too in the accent. I feel,
and of course he's Italian, right? I mean, there was only one Cuban, Stephen. I think it's Bowers. He was the co-star of the movie. He was actually a real Cuban. He helped Pacino work on his accent.
Okay, all right. And so he, it was great. It made Pacino like he was obviously huge from Godfather movies, but like it really put him in the stratosphere after that movie, right?
It did. And one of his favorite things is to drop the F-bomb, right? And apparently Oliver Stone was a big fan of this too. So take a guess at how many times the F word is said during the movie, or how many F-bombs are dropped per minute in this movie.
Oh geez, if we're talking about per minute, it's got to be a lot. I don't know, I'd say 60 times he dropped the F-bomb.
226 times, not just Pacino's character, but over the course of the entire movie, 226 times, which translates to 1.32 FPM, better known as fucks per minute.
Wow. And so that's probably one of the reasons why it had that X rating at the beginning, right? I mean, you kill a clown and you drop the F-bomb 200 plus times and it's going to be an F rating, right?
But I think that's one thing that makes it a classic. It really was. I mean, I know it was a drama, but there was a lot of action in that too. So I think some people say, "Oh, that's not an action movie," but there's a lot of action. I mean, at the end when he says hello to my little friend, he's shooting M16 with a grenade launcher.
Absolutely.
Just high out of his mind on a mound of cocaine. He's got just white powder just dripping off of him.
Yeah, mound of cocaine or powdered milk, whatever it was, Damien, right?
Yeah, he and John DeLorean were in the back room making a deal for DMC.
There you go. All right, so Scarface, obviously a very iconic action movie from the 1980s.
So what do we have here, Bill? Lethal Weapon 1, is that what we're doing, or which one?
Yeah, absolutely. Lethal Weapon 1, originally called Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, I guess because there wasn't a sequel yet.
Lethal Weapon. And so this is another one of those iconic movies from the 1980s. It was gritty. It was, it was action filled, but it was actually fun. It was heartfelt, and really, when you think about the plot of Lethal Weapon, it was the original buddy cop movie, with the relationship between Riggs and Murtaugh. Of course, Murtaugh was like the straight-laced guy. So it was funny. I was reading this. Danny Glover was a 50-year-old cop, or Roger Murtaugh was a 50-year-old cop. But of course, Danny Glover was only 40 when the movie was shot.
Raj, meet your new partner.
I'm too old for this. But he was being partnered with Martin Riggs, who was he was unstable. He was mourning the death of his wife. And it was just
really, really funny stuff. Yeah.
It was great, man. It was fantastic because it was just these two characters that came together. I mean, you think about it, like other movies were built because of Lethal Weapon, right? Yeah. So you've got all these other buddy cop movies, Turner and Hooch.
Yeah, and K9 car classics. We covered that in the season 1. Yeah,
yeah. But no, for reals.
Well, they had great. I would say they had great chemistry. Riggs and Murtaugh, they're really great chemistry, and that just like you said, something just about that worked with Murtaugh just being that kind of just a little bit, kind of he's got that grittiness to him. He's just like seen it, been there, done everything. Yeah, but yet he's got a good family. He's got a nice house. And then you got Riggs, who's just wild. I mean, he's just almost like trying to get killed, right? Because he's, I guess, grieving his wife.
And that's part of it. That's
living at a trailer on the beach somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just got nothing going on. Probably doesn't even change his underwear every day.
Yeah, who knows? And it was, like I said, the buddy cop movie. Think about Bad Boys, Rush Hour, Nice Guys, Hot Fuzz. All those are buddy cop movies. It had explosions and shootouts and car chases. There's a helicopter raid. There's Riggs running through traffic barefoot. I mean, it's just.
And didn't they say Riggs caused like $1 million worth of damage, even in the movie? When it was trying to bust somebody stealing a candy bar or something.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it also had a really good villain in Mr. Joshua. I don't remember. Mr. Joshua was played by Gary Busey, who
the very stable. Insane, Gary Busey.
I'm not sure if he was, I feel like he was probably playing himself in this movie.
I'm sure it had nothing to do with amounts of cocaine.
Probably not. But also had kind of a softer edge with, Riggs was dealing with some PTSD, from the death of his wife, and from his time in Vietnam and stuff. And so it was just, it was a really good movie. Plus it had iconic music. Eric Clapton played the guitar for for all those scenes with Riggs when he's like, sad and lonely on the beach in his, in the trailer on the beach and stuff like that. And so it didn't just blow things up. It had heart, it had humor, had heroes that you actually cared about. When there was, in the era of muscle and mayhem, it kind of gave us some soul. And that's why I think it's, one of the best movies of the 1980s, action movies of the 1980s.
Yeah, but how many F-bombs were dropped?
You know what? I do not have that stat, so I'm not sure about that, but hey man, it was a fantastic movie, and launched the career of Mel Gibson even more. He had a sweet mullet in that movie too. By the way, it was pretty sweet. So,
right, look at Scarface. He was the villain. Like he's not a hero. I mean, he was a horrible, horrible person in that movie. It was a great movie, but it's a little depressing. But you don't leave Lethal Weapon feeling depressed, right? I mean.
Right,
lots of funny scenes. You got, there's a bomb on the toilet. I mean, it's just you love toilet humor.
That was in Lethal Weapon 2.
Oh, was that Lethal Weapon 2? Okay, I got those confused. But there's still the whole franchise.
Yeah, for sure. And and that's they made 4 movies. They made 4 Lethal Weapon movies. That Lethal Weapon 2 was in 89, 3 was in 92, 4 was in 98. Then they brought in people like Joe Pesci and Rene Russo for it. And
I thought Joe Pesci was a great addition. He just really amped up the humor in that.
Oh, absolutely. And it was action with heart for sure.
Yeah, great selection, man. I think they're both great movies, very different. And let us know what one of your favorite action movies is, and hit us up. We're on 80 Show Podcast on all the socials, or 80 Show Podcast at gmail.com, and maybe we'll cover one of those on one of our next episodes.
All right, Damien, it's time for some pastel suits and some power boats. And we've teased it long enough, but it's time to dive into Miami Vice. And Scarface level amounts of cocaine with Miami Vice, right, Damien? So this is Miami Vice, the show that made every guy in the 80s think that he could solve crimes wearing a linen suit and some boat shoes, right, Damien?
Yeah, it was really the holy trinity of Crockett, Tubbs, and some synthesizer soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
And did you know that the soundtrack by Jan Hammer, it was instrumental only.
Yep.
But it hit the Billboard Top 100.
It's funny. I think that I had a tape. I had like I was going to say VHS tape, but no, like an audio tape of the soundtrack from Miami Vice.
Yeah. Did you record it off the radio?
No, but I actually think I bought it somewhere. So
I mean, yeah, if you distilled the 80s into one television series, Miami Vice would be it. No question at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it premiered on NBC in 1984, and it only ran until 1989, which I think it's probably more of a, it was because the 80s were done in 89, because it was the quintessential 80s show. And it was, 5 seasons of neon-drenched, high-speed, Armani-clad justice. And here's the deal. It wasn't just a hit. It was like a full-blown cultural event.
Yeah, I mean, you could see it everywhere you went. I mean, Miami Vice just permeated every part of our culture. And it wasn't really even your typical cop procedural, right?
Right.
One of the showrunners of this was on Hill Street Blues, right? Very different than like a Hill Street Blues.
Absolutely, yeah.
This thing had vibes, man. It had music. It had Crockett living on a houseboat, and he even had a pet alligator named Elvis.
Elvis, yes.
I mean, it really doesn't seem practical to have a pet crocodile.
No, and here's, Don Johnson can do it, right? Like Don Johnson is the iconic actor for that, to be able to have the pet alligator named Elvis. And let's not forget, Philip Michael Thomas. He was Tubbs. He was probably the smoothest man on television at that time, and between the two of them, they made undercover police work look like a GQ photo shoot.
Yeah, exactly. And how about those exotic sports cars too?
Oh, yeah.
They had the Ferrari Spider. They had the Testarossa. Because of this, I had a poster of a Testarossa on my wall.
I think I bought that too at like a Scholastic book fair or something like that. Yeah, absolutely. And so, we were watching some old episodes, Damien and I were, and we even saw DeLorean in one of the episodes. So, it just iconic all the way through.
Yeah, and they probably were busting John DeLorean at the time.
They probably were.
About 150 kilos of thereabout. Let's see, 40 grand, that's about 5 million. Wholesale, gentlemen, we're looking at about 75 million on the street.
And, just talk about that. And we're talking about how it was such a big part of our culture. How about the fashion, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Those pastel blazers.
Oh, yeah.
With the pastel, sometimes the pastel are just awesome, like silk T-shirts underneath.
Yes.
No socks. Every club in America in '85 probably had at least 5 guys trying to pull off that look, right?
I try to pull off that look, Damien.
Yeah. I will say junior high school Damien did as well.
Yeah.
I sported a sweet white linen jacket. And I took one of my OP pastel shirts, put it under that, and I would wear it to school, man. If that was a big man on campus. And then I also had a T-shirt. Do you remember going to the mall and they had these these places that you could make your own custom T-shirts.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you could pick out your own heat transfers.
Yes.
And so I made my own unique Miami Vice T-shirt, and I just thought it was so cool, man. It was the only one that had it. It was probably cheesy as hell, but it was awesome.
Hey,
man.
Who cares, man?
I used my hard-earned money. Yeah, I used my own hard-earned money to buy that.
Yeah, and so I remember my 8th grade, dance or whatever. I had a white jacket and a neon green shirt, and it was I felt pretty badass. But here's the deal. I don't know if I actually looked cool, Damien. But you know what? Miami Vice made everything like that look cool. It had like this confidence that was permeating the show. It knew it was redefining TV style in real time.
Yeah, it wasn't just style, man. It had substance too. And just like 21 Jump Street, that tackled real issues. Okay, not they weren't tackling high school, ruffians, but no, they really did. They were mostly drug trafficking, right? That was the big thing.
Oh, sure, yeah.
They also, but in the show, tackled race issues, corruption. They covered the whole gamut, right?
Yeah,
but they did it with MTV flair.
Oh, absolutely.
And seriously, each episode felt like a music video with guns.
Yeah, exactly. And so, they used real pop and rock songs from, in the episodes that was not done back then, it was total game changer. You had this scene of Crockett and Tubbs in the first episode driving a Ferrari. Phil Collins is In the Air Tonight is playing. We just watched this scene tonight. To get our brains right, and they pulled up underneath a neon sign so that Crockett can get out and use a payphone. I mean, it was just awesome, just awesome.
Yeah, I got chills, man. I don't know about you, but watching that, it was
absolutely.
It really was like watching a movie, man.
Yeah.
So honestly, the moment with the pilot song, man, it wasn't just good TV. It was just a whole entire vibe.
Oh, absolutely.
In fact, when NBC was getting ready to produce this movie, the president came out and said, I want a show that's MTV with cops. There you go. That really is what it was. And that's why we got such an amazing style there, right? So, it didn't look like traditional 80s TV at the time. They set a whole new trend of how 80s movies are filmed, 80s TV shows are filmed.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael Mann, who was the executive producer, and he's made some great movies that we love. He kind of treated every episode like it was almost like a mini movie. The cinematography, the lighting, the music, everything. It was all next level for the time. And we were just watching this episode tonight, and it looks like a movie. Like it's shot the way it looks like a movie.
Yeah, in fact, I read that they spent about $1.3 million per episode.
Wow.
Which in today's, like Netflix budgets and stuff is not a big deal, but for 1980s dollars and for what we saw on network TV, that was huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was huge.
Absolutely.
And, don't forget about also, because it was such a huge phenomenon, the guest stars, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to be on Miami Vice. You had, up and coming megastars like Bruce Willis, Julia Roberts, had music stars like James Brown. Yeah. So it's definitely the cool kids, man. Everybody wanted to be on this show.
Absolutely. And really, it kind of helped solidify Miami as a cultural hotspot. And before that show, most people just kind of thought of Miami as like a spring break spot, just go there once a year or whatever. But after Miami Vice, it became this sexy, dangerous, mysterious, the perfect setting for anything, really.
Yeah, I do think it helped revitalize Miami because at the time it was one of the murder capitals of the world because of cocaine issues and things. And, Miami, especially South Beach, just one of my favorite vacation spots there. I've been there a number of times, man. I'll tell you what, the beaches there are beautiful. The clubs are beautiful. The people are beautiful. I mean, you go to the clubs there.
I'm sure the people, Damien, I like the way you said the people are beautiful. Go ahead.
It's, it's some of the beaches. Some of the beaches they even wear tops, right? But I tell you, go to the clubs there. I mean, you legitimately see models from all over the world. It is just amazing. I mean, the nightlife is crazy. The clubs are open all night. You can party all night long. I'm sure there's plenty of yayo to be found. It's not my thing. But hey, I'm sure it's there to be found.
Yeah, there you go. And so, like we said, it wasn't just a cop show. Really, it was, as Damien said earlier, it was a vibe. It was a vibe with a body count. It was a vibe with great hair, Damien. In the later episodes of Miami Vice, Don Johnson's got just this beautiful flow going back there. He looks like a rock star, basically, with this beautiful hair. So,
yeah, it really did really make him an icon too, John.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Don Johnson, Crockett. And I will say, definitely not a kid show. We probably shouldn't have been watching it at 12, 13 years old, right? I don't know about you, but I think it was on Friday nights. I had to sneak around and watch that because my mom didn't like me watching those kind of shows. But it was worth it, man.
Yeah,
it was such a great show. And if I could rewatch every episode again, I probably will do that at some point.
Yeah. So, and here's the cool thing that, Damien, that Variety has recently reported that Miami Vice reboot is in the works with the director from Top Gun Maverick at the helm. So, what do you think about a Miami Vice reboot?
I'm skeptical. The one that was, I think, was in 2006 with Jamie Foxx and Colin Farrell. It was okay. So, Bill, I don't know. What do you think about a reboot here? Do you think they're going to be trying to bust a cocaine ring or maybe like an illegal Ozempic cartel?
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, if they're trying to, do it in modern day, I'd probably bet on the Ozempic cartel. Is that a thing? I don't. Is Pablo back? Like, what's going on here?
But I will say that what gives me hope is just knowing that the Top Gun Maverick director is going to be directing this. So, it might be good. I think it's going to be tough to really do something that was part of the 80s culture and bring it into modern day times. I don't know how you put that in a bottle and make it work again.
Yeah, it's almost like when someone talks about the 80s, like on a podcast, like, trying to bring those memories back, right? It'll be like that a little bit, right, Damien?
I don't think it'll be quite as good as that.
All right. So, we recommend it, of course, if you haven't watched Miami Vice in a while, you can find it on YouTube. I think it's on Peacock as well. And just give it a watch. It was just the iconic show of the 1980s.
Well, that's it for today's episode. Next episode, we have some exciting segments. We're going to be talking about Top Gun versus Iron Eagle.
Oh, man, I can't wait for that. It's been a while since I watched Iron Eagle, so I'm going to have to watch it again before we talk about it. We're also going to be talking about Top Gun Maverick, which was the sequel to the 1986 blockbuster Top Gun. We're also going to do a segment called Ask a Millennial, and we're going to be asking some millennials and maybe even some Gen Z people, trivia about the 1980s. And so why don't you... Uh-oh.
That's never a good sign. Gosh dang it. I mean, every time.
All right, so
here's the facts, man. What is it? This is not a good sign, man.
Okay, well, Bugle Boy is no longer a sponsor of the 80 Show podcast, Damien.
Apparently they never were, because apparently they've been out of business since 1994 or something like that.
Okay, all right. Well, if you are looking to sponsor an up-and-coming podcast, go ahead and hit us up at 80showpodcast@gmail.com. Where else can people interact with us, Damien?
On all the socials. We're just 80 Show Podcast on everything. Just find us there.
Absolutely.
Or our website, 80s.show.
There you go. And, tell your friends about us. You can always rate us on all the, podcast streaming apps and stuff like that. So
as long as you're going to give us 5 stars, rate us, please.
Absolutely.
I'm Damien Raffelli, and in the immortal words of Tony Montana, all I have in this world are my word and my balls, and I don't break them for no one.
All right. And so I'm Bill Lassiter, and guess what? I'm getting too old for this.
Theme song composed by my good friend, fellow rock star, straight out of Bakersfield. You may also know him from the band Videodrone, Mark Russell Davis.